Llwyn Celyn, exceptional late medieval hall house. How do we turn this derelict building into a really nice place for people to stay as a landmark? It's November 2014 and we've come down today to really try and test our architectural scheme against the philosophy of repair that we've come up with.
Llwyn Celyn was built on a hillside at the mouth of the Llanthony Valley in the late 15th century at a time of change and optimism. Then it was part of the Llanthony Priory estate. The Priory owned most of the valley at the time, and in 1480 gained a new lease of spiritual and financial life when it was taken over by its daughter priory, Llanthony Secunda in Gloucester. A succession of tenant farmers lived on the site and worked its land until 1959, when the estate was sold, allowing Llwyn Celyn's resident farmer to purchase the house, its outbuildings and land. Listed Grade 1, Llwyn Celyn is especially rare as an unaltered, high-status medieval Welsh farmstead. Its evolution as a building can be read in three separate phases. Phase 1 is the original medieval floor plan with a cross passage, the buttery and pantry, the hall with its high end and low end open to the ceiling, and a private solar wing, which would once have had access to the first floor via a ladder. This reconstruction drawing shows the building in its 17th century form, Phase 2, after it was modernised by the insertion of a ceiling into the open medieval hall, plus a large chimney, fireplace and stairs. This second phase also saw the addition of a kitchen block and a cider mill to the rear of the house. Its final phase saw another small addition, a malt kiln, to the rear of the house, plus the removal of the wall dividing the buttery and pantry, which was latterly used as a kitchen, whilst the solar block was used as a dairy.
So what we have to do first of all is come up with a philosophy of repair. This means an overarching statement or aim that we measure our restoration decisions against. In this case, at Llwyn Celyn, what we've decided is that the period of most significance is that of the 17th century, and that means that some of the later interventions in the 20th century, perhaps even the 19th century, have to be taken away. We won't conserve as found, we think. Instead, we will present the house at its period of greatest historic significance, more or less in the 17th century. And what we're doing today is working our way through the architect's scheme for conversion to a landmark to try and test decisions we'll need to make in doing that against that overall philosophical approach.
Our process begins with a conservation management plan, which describes the historical value of the site and its evolution over time, based on the evidence of the historic fabric and available documents. The architect's scheme configures the building carefully so that it can accommodate 8 people with a modern kitchen and bathrooms. 1 bedroom and a bathroom will be easily accessible by those with limited mobility. The medieval hall will become the dining room, in keeping with its original use, with a sitting room in the large chamber upstairs. 2 bedrooms and bathrooms will also be on the first floor, with a further bedroom suite in the cider mill. Aside from the obvious structural repairs that are needed, thought needs to be given to how people move around the building. Being built into a hillside, the house is split over many levels. Not all of these changes in level are original, and ceiling heights and windowsill levels are often problematic.
One of the perennial problems with historic buildings is the changes in floor level. In here, we've got a significant change in floor level into these rooms with a step down, and then you come down the passageway and there are 2 more steps. So the challenge for us is how do we both keep the historic fabric, but at the same time meet present-day health and safety and disability regulations. The windows in the house are a real issue for us because they come from every different period. For example, in this little chamber, this window is the earlier one, but then at some later period it was decided to create a new window. So which one do we use? Elsewhere in the building, we've got different windows again. So here in the hall, for example, are these much larger openings created at a later date, metal frames and really nice fist latches, which we're told are characteristic of the Llanthony estate. And what about these? Rather gruesome or really interesting evidence of smoking food in a farm?
Llwyn Celyn contains many interesting details that are often lost or eradicated during the inevitable adaptation of buildings over time. This original medieval dais bench is a rare survival in the hall, signifying the high end where the head of the house would sit. These carved door heads are wonderful early features too, along with this intriguing water spout. All such details need thoughtful consideration when preparing a new scheme for such a building.
Upstairs, these partitions create an issue. They create a corridor, but they're later than the period that we're wanting to concentrate on. What we'd really like to do is to reopen the great chamber that was above the hall in the phase that we're most interested in. But this too is historic fabric, so how do we resolve that? This outbuilding is a real challenge. We want to make a bedroom and a bathroom here. Until recently, it was chest high in rubbish, and now it's cleared, we discover that in the floor there's the remnants of a millstone. It was probably a cider house and a very rare survival. So how do we convert it to make a bedroom and a bathroom in it?
The site at Llwyn Celyn includes a series of agricultural outbuildings. These will find new uses as a workshop, teaching, and exhibition area, and an interpretation room. They may be less significant architecturally, but are full of character and atmosphere that should be preserved if possible. The project team includes Caroline Stanford, landmarks historian, our project architect John Goom, project surveyor Richard Burton, furnishings manager John Everts, and Bill Martin, an impartial external consultant who guides our process.
We've put an executive summary on it, which just basically, in a couple of lines, tells you from where we are, the view we're taking on the main house in terms of which areas, which stage of the development of the house we're going to focus on in terms of the work, and also then the second stage looking at the ancillary outbuilding.
Should we perhaps just set the scene on that? And I mean, here I don't think it's particularly controversial, I hope not, but it's not quite conserve as found. I think as we've been working the scheme through, and particularly thinking about windows, thinking about partition upstairs, thinking about how on earth we get a bedroom and a bathroom out of the cider house, we're realising that it's not quite as simple as conserve as found, and that there will be some 20th century material as well that needs to be taken back. But essentially what we're saying is that for the main house we will prioritise, if you like, its current more or less 17th century form, even to heighten its 17th century form. I use 17th century a bit loosely because we still don't know for certain when the hall was sealed over, when the chimney stack was put in, when the stairs were put in. But we're talking about the sealed hall, essentially. For the ancillary buildings outside, I would say that the external appearance is something we need to be really sensitive to for the significance of the grouping as a whole. But we really need them to be able to function efficiently in their new community uses, because otherwise they're going to be a financial liability on the main house. So to that degree, that may lead us to slightly more adventurous decisions, let's say, about the interiors of the outbuildings.
There's one item that I would like to resolve today, is where we introduce something new, even if it is on the, supposedly reinstating something that was there, such as the wall between the buttery and the pantry, do we use overtly 20th century or 21st century approaches, or are we going to be going to a historical reconstruction where we are pretty certain what was there? Bearing in mind that I'm assuming that we are not overtly exposing timber frame or in a structure, because apart from upstairs, there's nowhere else where the frame is exposed.
No, I mean, we absolutely wouldn't be about any kind of faux dressing or distressing or anything else. And there have been times, I mean, I think it's fair to say it's gone both ways on other projects. Normally we would try to reinstate in the traditional techniques, but then sometimes cost creeps up on us.
No, sure.
So,
yes. But also, I mean, there are issues. Then you say about the kind of the traceability, as it were, of the repair and the reinstatement. You know, we need to be clear about that. But of course, there'll be adequate records made, etc. And presumably, the history annual, Caroline, in the house will talk about. I hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
Will talk in detail about what was done to
Yeah.
the house.
So the record is there.
The record is there, so no one's going to be confused in that
Indeed.
way. So I think that's a difference.
But then there's the aesthetic side of it as well.
John,
So
what do you think?
Well, I think it's the legibility of it, isn't it?
yeah. Mm.
But do we make things overtly new? I mean, if you're going to put panelling in, say, we would make it out of new timber, wouldn't we?
Yes, we
If
would.
you're going to see it, you'd make it out of new timber. If we're making the walls, say, which again would have been lath and plaster, I think it's all right to make it out of softwood with, say, expanding metal if you want to, you know, to as a ground for your lime plasters.
To repair, restore, conserve, recreate. These are terms used in the profession to describe different approaches. Wherever possible, Landmark repairs and conserves existing fabric using traditional materials and techniques. Only rarely do we deliberately recreate historic fabric, and then only if evidence remains to suggest what was there originally. If a complete rebuild of a wall, for example, is necessary, we may employ an appropriate use of traditional and modern techniques and materials, provided this can be done honestly and without deception. A mismatch of windows has led to debate. Do we alter sill heights, openings and glazing to recover a presentation more consistent with its medieval or 17th century form?
But here, we haven't got a clue what the
No,
windows
exactly.
are.
And we have windows that actually have something to say about a significant phase of the building's history. So
Well, that gets pretty tricky.
You know, if you can find no evidence for what would have been here originally, and also
With little evidence to confirm what the original windows may have looked like, and the likelihood that the openings have all been enlarged over time, we will keep the existing metal windows with their fist-shaped latches that represent the estate when it was under the ownership of the Landor family. Other windows, such as those in the cider house, will retain their timber mullions and have new glazing inserted into the frame. As with any project, we have to comply with modern-day building regulations and make the site as accessible as possible for those with limited mobility.
At meeting, we did talk about access for people with wheelchairs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I have now looked at that, and it is physically possible for us to get a level access.
The outbuildings will be made fully accessible for all mobility needs, but in the listed farmhouse, we will need to balance such considerations against the need to preserve its historic character. The building steps up against the hillside, and the variable levels on the ground floor are part of its character and historic form, but would also cause problems for those in wheelchairs, particularly between the cross passage, hall and the kitchen.
Big difference would be it involves making the hall a sloping floor to eliminate the two steps, or we have half of it like that and half of that, or we have a lift. And it's only got to lift about that far.
It's this area, isn't it? It's just this one here that we need to sort of think through.
Well, this all comes to a head with the building regulations.
Yeah, quite.
Where the stipulation is that one needs to do as many physical changes as you
Quite,
can to allow access, provided it doesn't compromise the historical integrity of it. And this is why I'm quite keen to get a building inspector involved as early as possible. And I think we've clearly got the case here of the significance of the building, and I think anything that starts to eat into
Permanent
this
ramps,
space
rails and lifts have been ruled out as too visually and physically intrusive in these historic interior rooms. Temporary ramps are potentially a better option.
You know.
Except that when this was one hall in its entirety, those steps would not have been there. So why are they there now?
The current floor levels are not consistent with what we expect to be normal medieval hall house convention. Or does Llwyn Celyn break the norm because of its hillside location?
We're going to take the floors up anyway, aren't we?
Not all of them. These we think is a concrete slab.
Oh, that's a concrete slab, isn't it? And we were going to build that
on
up.
top of it. But not. I don't think we can. We can't build it up to the height of that
because of the ceiling height.
Because of the ceiling.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the things we need to look at because they're going to.
I think we've still got to
they're
have
going
a
to
change of
determine, aren't they, what we can sensibly do.
On closer examination, it becomes clear that the levels in the passageway have been altered. Why is still a bit of a mystery, but at least it offers us some flexibility in finding a solution to our access issues.
What do? Do you drop a floor? Do you raise a floor? If you want to look at changes of levels?
I've just answered the question.
I was going to say, can somebody just remind me of the evidence?
At the level of the floor.
Yeah.
At the level of the
Yeah.
floor,
Suggesting that this has been lowered.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm
no.
absolutely certain that has happened. I'm sure, but this is the floor level here. And that ran all the way through.
Access into the property from the yard also needs to be thought about carefully. Ground levels outside have inevitably changed over the centuries, not least because water runs almost continuously downhill through the farmyard, eroding the surface.
Unless it's all been washed away. See that? See, it's quite... See that? Looks as though that might have been ground level at some time. Doesn't it?
It
Because
does.
We do know there is surface movement of the slope, particularly above the house, and it certainly looks as if there's been loss of ground around this south-east corner.
And if that was ground level, that could be a mountain block.
And that would also, if it were ground level, that would
Yes, it would.
correct your levels.
That would correct.
Gentle re-landscaping of the farmyard and remodelling of the steps will resolve the problems here and create an inviting entrance. Back inside, the old buttery and pantry are the next rooms to be considered. Here the floor level has almost certainly been lowered, and the now single room will need to be partitioned into two separate rooms.
The floors, we keep the slab. If we're going to extend the underfloor heating into here, which I think we should, otherwise we're going to have radiators and we might still have radiators to deal with anyway. But whether that goes in as a solid floor with new slabs on it, or whether it goes in as a timber floor. Now I think the boot room particularly needs to be cleanable, and so it might even be a tiled floor there, I don't know. But the snug, I would have thought if it's going to be a snug, needs probably to have a softer finish.
Yes, be really nice with a suspended floor.
The tiles, if you're not careful, might reinforce a Victorian kind of feel. But I don't know, there's something to think about there, isn't there? Whereas flags are a little bit more, would run through the building and there'd be no issue that they're original, but there wouldn't necessarily, because there are going to be sort of overtones of Victorian building through here as well, aren't there? They're not really those areas that we want to emphasise.
A redundant chimney inserted in the 19th or the 20th century now causes damp problems. It seems drastic to consider removing it, but on balance the decision is easy.
I think even if it's been kept but not in use, I would suggest that the brick part is removed. But if we're not going to keep it, and there's nothing to suggest that there had been a flue here, do we remove it entirely? If we are going to keep it, do we have an opportunity to put a wood-burning stove or something in here? I mean, if this is going to be a genuine snug, but I would think it would have to be a very small one, and I suspect would only ever be used very
It would
rarely.
become unbearably warm.
My
wouldn't it?
inclination is
Yeah.
to take it out completely.
Yeah. If we remove entirely, we can tile over.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't project out at all.
No,
It's gone
I
up within
remember
the
when we were up
thickness of the.
there. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, let's do that.
Decision.
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Okay. Now,
What about the doors, John?
I had envisaged a simple boarded door,
Yeah.
which may well do what this does, which closes against the back of these.
Yeah.
So we don't try and make any
No.
feature on the door itself of that. That is. And
The old
same-
buttery and pantry will have its dividing wall reinstated. The second doorway will be revealed and the rooms used as a boot room and snug. The change in level into the rooms needs to be dealt with, as it is unsafe to have a step down into a room in combination with an inward opening door.
Why don't we not make that door work at all, but have it as a dummy? Come in at this level in this room here, and then put a door in there, so you then go down into your snug. Or maybe put a...
If the door's opened
your
out.
Your floor level will be here. I mean, that windowsill is going to be 6 inches above floor level.
Yeah.
It just seems to me a little bit cumbersome to come in and then go down and, and the whole point about the screens passage is that you have the doors to the buttery and the pantry, that there were always 2 functioning doors.
The buttery and pantry were important rooms in a medieval household. Here the wet goods were stored in butts in the buttery, separate from the dry goods stored in the pantry. Reinstating this configuration with 2 separate doors and a partition wall would be an example of a historic form overriding practical solutions.
What height would the ceiling be?
You're talking just over 2 metres. And by the time you get down here, you're probably coming down to about 1.9.
The problems surrounding the levels in these 2 rooms are difficult to resolve. After weighing up the options, we decided that we will keep the 2 doors and return to a simple single level throughout. The ceiling level in the far corner of the snug will be low, but this feature will be in keeping with the new use of the room. The original medieval hall, once open to the roof, will be reused as a dining room. The dice bench will remain in situ at the high end. The floor will be carefully lifted to allow underfloor heating to be installed, and the fireplace opened up to reveal the 17th century structure. This will once again feel like a room of great importance. On the first floor, we will remove the partitions completely, returning the floor plan to its 17th century form, creating an atmospheric sitting room big enough for use by 8 people. Removal of modern plasterboards will reveal the original roof trusses as seen in this reconstruction drawing. The cider house is to be converted into a bedroom and bathroom. The recent discovery of the millstone has led us to question what to do with the floor level.
It's pretty fragmentary.
Yep.
It is a major anomaly for us in terms of trying to make a usable space out of the room. We are almost certainly going to have to drop the floor level, looking again at Bill as our representative tall person. And therefore, having come feeling very precious about it and thinking seeing it in situ, seeing how broken up it is, I just wonder whether we shouldn't record it, have the photographs, have the explanation, but then drop the floor.
I mean, I think, there's a sort of a pragmatism that, has to be applied. And I mean, it's something like, in the end, what it comes down to with this whole site is the fact that it's being put back into sort of beneficial use, which is the main aim of the thing to start with. And, these kind of issues, yes, it's very interesting. You've got this evidence which will always be here. You record it, take it up, you can't. The idea of resetting it into a floor is the only other way of dealing with it, unless you're just going to leave it where it is, which makes this whole space totally unusable.
Yeah.
So that's no good. That's a non-starter. No one would require you to do that. But certainly, in terms of resetting it in a new floor, it would be a horrible sort of pastiche. Really.
So we'd basically make sure we have a really good photographic record.
I don't think there should be any issue about that.
Yeah.
If this bit is a lovely big bit of it, a substantial piece of it, one might just let one bit of it into the new floor as a kind of memory of what had been there.
Even if it was under the bed.
Even if it was under the bed, because it would make part of it and it would just be a memory. The great shame, isn't it, is that the people are getting, it's so exciting for us to see that there, isn't it? But you can't remake that.
No, you can't. You can't.
And whatever you try and do, it's lost.
Yes.
And if you put it at a different level, it all gets a bit tricky. But that looks as though it might have a bit of, and it's got a bit of a straight edge there, so you might be able to be a bit clever with it.
The desired location for the bathroom is the darkest corner with the lowest ceiling height, where the footprint of a trough associated with the cider mill is still embedded in the ground.
This may well be bedrock. we are already well below ground level here. And I don't want to have to start underpinning this wall. So even if we do have to lift this up slightly, I think if we level that off and have a step up into the bathroom, I think, and this has a higher ceiling or even open right up to the top if necessary, and that you keep this area separated off, possibly accessible from the bedroom, and this somehow is our evidence of the historical evidence of the side of the house.
We want to create a bathroom that feels light and to which access is easily negotiable at night time. So a new level will be inserted part way up, which will take advantage of light from an overhead window. The floor plan will preserve the area that once housed the cider press. There is much still to discover and understand about Llwyn Celyn, and there are also many details and features that we wish to preserve, such as initials carved into doors and hooks in walls and ceilings.
See, that's nice as well. Look,
Yeah, the
MJ, which
Well,
will be Jasper probably.
He's
Which
obviously proud of it because he's done
Yeah,
it again there
yeah.
and there.
Once work begins on site, we will no doubt be able to find evidence that answers some of our outstanding questions, and almost definitely find new things to ponder over too. The process is ongoing, and so too is the documentary research, which we hope will bring to light the names of past tenants and tell us something of their lives lived here at Llwyn Celyn.